All right, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Lambdas Who Roll Live. I'm here with my co-hosts Fernando and Diego. What's going on, fellas?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
What's going on?
How you guys doing today?
Good. Happy Independent 4th of July to everybody.
Yeah, happy 4th, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what's up, man. How's your training this week? How you guys doing this week?
Good, Diego. I'll let you answer that.
No, I didn't train too much this week. Just taught and trained one or two times. But yeah, looking forward to today. Every Sunday open mat.
How the kids' classes coming out?
They're good. I mean, yeah, those are pretty cool. The kids are, we're trying to push them a little bit differently and a little bit more this time around. So yeah, man, I'm excited for the growth of it. But yeah, it's going well.
Is the class growing? Have you seen a lot more students coming in? Slowly but surely.
So just the same students that we had before. We're trying to bring those people in first, and then slowly kind of like whoever's interested in coming in and trying it out. But because obviously our space is limited, we're trying to keep it controlled a little bit.
Nice. Fernando, how was your week, man? Did you get some training in?
It was good. I got two trainings in this week. One at Capitol, and then with you actually yesterday. So yeah, it was a good week. Like I didn't train as much as I wanted to. One too is like on Tuesday I was like super frustrated, but this is a perfect segue into what we want to talk about today. But but yeah, I was able to get at least 2 days in, so that's good for me.
Nice.
At least that's I did something.
Nice. Yeah, Fernando came through yesterday, man, and
nice.
Got to roll with him a little bit. So
looking forward to training. Yeah, looking forward to training with you guys soon.
Are you coming down? You're gonna come down soon?
Yeah. I'm planning to probably within the next week or so.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I got a few classes in this week. Mostly the morning classes. Those have been very consistent. A lot of people have been coming out 6:30 in the morning. Only the difference last week we did like 4 in a row. I had to take off Friday, or one of the days I had to take off because my body was feeling it, man. This week I didn't really want to do it. And I remember what Diego said, man, it's hard to keep it consistent because imagine waking up 6:30 in the morning every day. It's not easy now.
It's not easy. It's great. It's great when you do it.
Yeah.
But it's not easy.
Yeah, man. And especially if you're like going to sleep late, you kind of have to wake up. I mean, go to sleep early, have enough hours of sleep to wake up energized to do it. I felt this week I was kind of dragging myself out of bed, but I'm glad I did. I got some morning sessions in. A few people came out. Yesterday was a pretty good class with Fernando coming in. But the one thing that we did differently this week was instead of doing like an hour and a half of just rolling, people are coming out to the morning class. They're not coming to the evening class anymore, where we're doing more technique. So instead, we said 6:30 to 7, we'll just do drills. We'll just like high intensity drills, and then 7 to 8, we'll just roll. That worked out really nice. So we did some passing sequence this week, which is good because at least I get to drill too, right? Because usually when you train or you're teaching, you usually teach what you know, what you're comfortable with, but you don't get to drill yourself, right? You become a student through teaching, but it's different when you're actually receiving the information and then drilling it over and over again. So it was nice to be able to do that today. But today we wanted to get into an interesting topic. I think something that we've all gone through at some point in the years that we've been doing jiu-jitsu is the idea of quitting, right? The idea of stepping away from the mats for whatever reasons, right? So today we wanted to talk a little bit about what those reasons are, and then what was maybe a reason that you faced and how you overcame that struggle, that little challenge that you had at that moment to continue to stay on the mat. So how do we want to start this? We want to talk about maybe the top 5, or you want to just bring up a topic and then just keep on talking about it?
Let's start off with one of those 5.
Okay, cool.
So see how that goes. And then, yeah, man, this is a very interesting and important topic. I'm excited for it, to be honest. And, but yeah, let's start off with that, and then we'll kind of like,
okay, perfect. So I doing a little research and, reading up on reasons why people quit jiu-jitsu, and also thinking about, my experience and the people who come in and out of my life, through jiu-jitsu, in no order, obviously in no order. This is not ranked or anything like that, but The first one is being, frustration, by not feeling like you're progressing, or like you hit a plateau. You kind of at a standstill. You don't feel like you're learning anything new, or you see people, you see your teammates getting promoted, and you're not really getting promoted, right? So let's talk a little bit about that one. How to deal with that.
Um, I mean, like, it's frustrating, right? I mean, like, you're seeing other people progressing faster than you are, maybe getting things, simple things, things that you may think that, man, how come I'm not grasping it? It's just a simple move, so it's very frustrating to say the least. Um, but it's a nice way to, like, that in itself is a challenge, right? In its own, right? Like, because you have to really think about yourself. You really have to think about, you know, um, like how they say, like, just focus on your journey, compare yourself to yourself, compare yourself to yesterday's self or whatnot, and like, it's even though that's really difficult seeing someone else, getting promoted, especially when you start at the same time,
Hmm.
Yeah.
right? You start at the same time, you guys are moving forward. But what I've learned is that, man, like, right now as a black belt, like, I think I mentioned it a few times before, or maybe to individuals, like, man, I envy that white belt, now at this stage, right? So if I can give any advice from now being at this stage, I envy the white belt because I wish I can be at that white belt level and be like, hold on, just one more, just hold on a little bit longer for that stripe. Hold on a little bit longer for that blue belt, purple belt, brown belt. Now it's no longer that mindset. So if you can get over a little of those small, like, let's say, you get into you start off, you're a white belt, your boy starts off at the same time, he gets promoted. If you can get over that little challenge in the beginning, um, you'll obviously, like, things will get a little bit easier, a little bit better, right? Because again, now, like, I'm not thinking like that anymore. Now that it doesn't really matter, right? If someone else gets promoted, that's okay. um and it's like you don't even want the promotion anymore. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, that's definitely a huge challenge. um not but depends on what how people take
Yeah.
it.
Brandon, what do you think, man? Have you ever felt frustrated when
Yeah,
you're, hitting a plateau, or like you feel like you're not getting any better or anything like that?
all the time. To be honest with you, see, like growing up in life, and my mom can tell you this. Like am like the biggest sore loser ever. So in jujitsu, that's you're not gonna win all the time. And I thought that that I can come in. I think I'm pretty smart. I can grasp concepts pretty well, and it's not like the case all the time. And too, like at first, now as a blue belt, you know what Diego said rang well true to me, because like I felt like when you're a white belt, there's not that much expectation on you. It's I wouldn't say it's easier, but like it's the weight of the expectation is not that great. Like once, like I realized that once I got promoted to blue belt, now it's like okay, now like you're expected to know like a lot of things.
Mm.
You're expected to grasp like concepts a lot faster. I remember my first class as a blue belt. And a white belt came to me like asking me for advice on like different techniques, and I was like kind of like, oh, I'm still like I was just a white belt like 2 days ago. Like I'm still like it's like having that like imposter complex or something like that. I
Yeah,
think that's
imposter
what it's
syndrome.
called. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So once I guess like trying to get over that, like because sometimes I still have that. Like it's like wow, am I ready? Things like that. And then also too, like with the in the beginning too, as a white belt, because like when you're a white belt, you like you don't appreciate the belt, because you're always like, oh, I want to get to blue. I remember one of my wife's cousins actually, getting him involved, and then I had been doing jujitsu for about like a year or so, and like he got like instantly hooked, and then all of a sudden he progressed way faster than I did. So, at first, instead of being happy for him, it's like kind of like, like, yo, like what the heck, where's, but like, why can't, but then, once I got over that, because that was my problem, was comparing myself to others. And that's not healthy. And that's not, if you want to progress in this lifestyle, you got to just focus on your journey and not anybody else's. So even now, when I see people get promoted, now it's, give them, a hand, and it would be genuinely happy for them, instead of, trying to compare, like, hey, I started before him. Why, where's my belt? Once I was able to get over that, I was able to enjoy, coming to class and enjoying my journey more.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and yeah, my bad. Before I lost my train of thought, but yeah, I mean, like, it's, if you can get through that, right? If you can get past that, right? Then you can be. Jiu-jitsu in itself has different opportunities of growth, right? Like, you're gonna learn different things in different aspects, right? Some people may come in to do jujitsu and do this physical activity for a whole different purpose than other than learning jujitsu. I mean, obviously, like, you're learning jujitsu, but for a whole different purpose, right? Maybe they're not going to be a competitor. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're just doing it for themselves, and because they want that activity and it gives them that sense of. So if we can get, again, past that, a whole, like, if someone else is doing something that is not part of my like what I'm doing or what I'm seeing or my growth, then it shouldn't really matter, right? It's easier said than done, right? But it's one of the beautiful things that we get to overcome and get to accomplish. The fact that it is frustrating. It is a reason to. There's many reasons to quit, right? We can quit for a million and one reasons, but the fact that this is going to be the case, right? People are going to be better than you, and you're going to be better than others, right? But this is a mental struggle, a mental challenge, an emotional struggle, and challenge as well. But the beauty of it, that, once we can get past that and get out of that shell, then it becomes just like, it's very empowering, right? Because now you're taking control of that small aspect of your life. And then you're also being able to take a control because of what you're saying, Fernando, and like now being genuinely, supportive of others. Now that's another thing that you're giving yourself, right?
Right.
Because now you're doing it for yourself. You're holding it and you're maintaining it for yourself. You're controlling it and managing it for yourself. But now you're also giving it to others, right? In a genuine way, which is another, kind of like, another door that opens, in this whole life of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, because when you're able to manage your frustration on the mats from your, I guess, your own mental thinking that you're not progressing or anything like that, it might translate into other things that you might do in life as well, because you're kind of forced to either balance it, manage it, or eventually you basically say I'm done. But when you're capable of doing that successfully on the mat, I can see that that skill being able to help you in other things in life that could potentially frustrate you too, right? And then you remember, well, I handled this difficult situation while I was doing jiu-jitsu. I can transfer this over here. Another thing I wanted to mention was with frustration, and we were talking about the frustration about you plateauing, meaning you're not progressing. You've been it, and all of a sudden you hit like a wall, or you see other people moving forward. So one thing that I recommend people to do is really look at small milestones. Let's just take one technique, right? If you're as a teacher, right, as an instructor, you share a technique and everybody starts doing it. You're gonna have some people that do the whole thing perfectly, right? Like, wow, you got it. And there's gonna be someone or somebody who can't do it. They're struggling. Oh, I can't figure it out. What I do at that moment is I reduce the goal, right? Rather than looking at the bigger picture, hitting the sweep to armbar, I say, you know what? Let's just focus on your hip movement. And when you do that well, you feel like you've accomplished something, because now you went from 0 to at least 1 versus going from 0 to 5, right? And that for them is in their mind is like, well, you know what? At least I got this. Like, for example, yesterday when we were talking about breaking the grips, right? I said, look, if you didn't hit the arm drag and took the back, that's okay, right? This is the first time you're learning it. But if you are capable of at least leaving with the understanding that I'm not going to let this person control my legs and grip, regrip, and just continue to just control that, and that little battle in itself is a win in the bigger picture, because now you're not going to let that happen at any time. So when that person puts things into perspective and can focus on little milestones, little goals, then you're able to accomplish much more, and you can see the progression. I tell people, and when we're talking about comparing to other people, don't do that. Compare to yourself. How were you when you walked in the first day into the gym versus how you are 10th day, 3 months down the road, a year down the road? I'm pretty sure you're a lot better than you were. So when you focus on yourself, you start putting frustration in the back, and you don't have to deal with that anymore, right? Because now you understand and you embrace the fact that this is just for me and my own journey, right? So that's super important, man. And plateau happens to everybody. I mean, I remember when I was a purple belt, I hit a hard wall. Like, I felt like I wasn't learning anything, to the point where I was like, you know what, I'm quitting this gym, maybe going somewhere else that's going to challenge me more. And one thing that my instructor at that time told me was like, look, you can go to the next gym, but guess what? You're going to learn stuff that they're going to teach you, and then you're going to hit another wall, and that's what's going to happen, because they're going to teach you something new. You're going to be super excited. And then after you've mastered that, or you've gotten really good at that, boom, you're done. Now where are you going to go to next? The issue, the jumping around is not going to resolve your inability to control your frustration. But and then he gave me some advice of what you can do is rethink how you're approaching things. Put yourself back into that white belt mindset. Like Diego was saying, is like forcing yourself to be in that white belt mindset, and realize that, number one, you don't know everything. So find things or research things that you don't know. Like, if you're constantly working, passing, and now you're like, I always pass, and what's next? Force yourself to play on your back. Force yourself to learn on escapes and work on escapes. Force yourself into positions that you don't know and you're not comfortable on, so that you can feel progression, so you can be back into that white belt mindset.
One thing that you mentioned before that, that made me think about, like, when it comes to like the kids, and those small milestones, right? As adults, like, we have so many different things that we have to think about, right? So obviously we're busy with a whole bunch of we're busy with a whole bunch of other things, but when you do have that small sense of accomplishment, right, it just keeps you going a little bit. And when you think about like the kids, we do the same thing with them, right? We see they're not going to pull an arm bar, straight from the first class, maybe even a few months, right? Like, for them to grasp the technical aspect of it may be a little bit more challenging for them. But if they can, be on the mount and spin around and with the arm in between their legs, so they can at least be in that position, right? That for me is a huge accomplishment for them, right? Because at the end of the day, they're moving in a completely different way than what they're used to, so like, yeah, I definitely agree with, like, small things that kind of keep you motivated, but I also think is a responsibility of, the school, the instructors, the team, in addition to yourself. With that same advice, man, subhanAllah, like I said, I got the same advice from, when I was a white belt, from my first professor, Mike McCulloch, may he rest in peace. And he also mentioned it. He also said, like, yeah, you can go, you can train somewhere else, but like, it's really up to you, right? Like, so he said it to me in a way that it was like, yo, it's really up to you of what you get out of it, like what you want from it. What I'm saying? And as a white belt, I didn't understand what he meant. And then I felt in that mindset, in that time, I felt like, my mindset was like, so that means that this school can't provide. But in reality, my mindset should have been a little bit different, in where, like, let me extract the best and the most I can get from it. And then, fill in the blanks with other things that I need to. Right now, we encourage a lot of our students to, we have a family, we have a hub, we have a team, we have a group, we train together, we push each other as much as we can. But we know that we can't offer absolutely everything. So it's our responsibility to encourage, the students and everyone to either come train, like let's say guests come and train with us, or go and train with other schools. Maybe not, like, obviously, like you're not going to join 5 schools, but you do need to build that network. I mean, now it's a little bit easier, but I do think that definitely helps out with this whole frustration and moving forward thing. Because at the end of the day, like, because let's say we're us three, we're training over and over and over and over constantly.
Yeah.
It's gonna get to a point in where we're gonna get used to each other, and we're still gonna challenge each other, but we're gonna get to a point in where we're gonna get so used to each other that we're comfortable.
Yeah.
Right. So now,
the games.
Right. So now we don't have too much fear. Right. So that fear level is already going down, not because obviously we can't beat each other up, but the fact that it's more comfortable. When you go into a tournament, you know what I'm saying, if it's completely different, right? They're trying to take off your head. I went to a tournament and I knew the guy who I was fighting, right? And I won't mention any names just so we don't think. But I knew the guy was fighting, but before the match, there was no hellos. There was no like what's up. There was nothing. It was just like straight business, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of it's a different challenge, right? Was he there to be that person? No, he was there. He was focused, and it made me like, oh man, I gotta focus too. Exactly. Right. So like it's just we do encourage others to like train with other schools, because at the end of the day, like it's a huge way to get away. It's a huge way to break that, right? To break that plateau, maybe a little bit faster, or but
that's what's up. So let's move on. And Fernando, you touched upon this a little bit about being a sore loser. So let's get into the second one. Number 2, reasons why people end up quitting jiu-jitsu is the ego. They can't control it, right? They can't get a hold of it. They let that one roll get to them. They get heated, and the ego beats them. So have you ever felt that? Let's say, Fernando, since you kind of opened that can of worms, tell us a little bit about that, dealing with the ego.
So, yeah, definitely. So the ego definitely comes to play, especially, so, and it shouldn't be like this, but like, let's say, like you're, an older belt, and then you get, like tapped by, like, let's say like a white belt, or a belt that's like I guess below you. Like that could be frustrating in itself, because it's like, how is this happening? Even though, saying, like I said, those things do happen, but, like when you're in the moment, and I guess, as I progress in my journey, I will understand this no more, but now I'm still like relatively young in my training, that is still, that ego still gets to me, where it's like, how is this possible? Like, why am I letting this, this white belt shouldn't be doing this to me. I should be able to escape. Like, what is it about me that is like, so it's just that constant mental battle of like trying to understand that, like you're not always going to be that hammer. Like sometimes you're going to be the nail, and, like it, that's something that like, I think that the ego, could hold you back, or even like question, your ability, and ultimately lead you to quitting and leaving, the sport.
So I want to like, I know a lot of people say, leave the ego at the door. There's no ego in jiu-jitsu. But technically there is, right? There is ego in this sport, because it's, it's a type of sport, right? And any sport, I think, right? You have that sense of, or a certain sense of it, obviously there's anger, there's frustration, there's all of these different negative things, but the difference is the control, right? How do we control these emotions and these things that are inevitable? Like when you get tapped, whether it be by someone a higher rank or lower rank, there's still a sense of like, damn, I didn't want to lose, right? I mean, it comes to mind, whether you explore it or is different, right? Whether you expand on it is different. But so I get tapped when I get tapped by lower ranks, or by anybody for that matter. Like, that idea of like, man, like why, or I didn't want that to happen, right? But what I realized is that for myself is, because everybody's like, oh, don't worry about it, don't have ego, and I'm like, man, I don't want ego in my roles. I don't care if I get tapped. But when I started thinking, I was like, man, I'm not frustrated that I got tapped. I'm frustrated on myself that I made a mistake. Right. So obviously if you get tapped, there's in that you made a mistake, right? Like
Yeah.
there's no way around it, right? You made a mistake in that role. So now having to dig through that to figure out how or why, that's where the frustration comes, right? That's where so I guess it's just a matter of controlling that ego,
Yeah.
maybe channeling it in a way that you can accept that ego. Because if for you to tell someone like, oh, don't worry about it, don't get if someone, because that's also frustrating. Like when someone says, oh, don't, you get tagged by a lower rank, you have the ego, don't let it bother you. That's really difficult because you're telling someone to not feel what it is that they want to feel. Like, yo, some people get frustrated, let it flow through however you want it to let it flow, but like
Absolutely.
control it a little bit. Control it in the sense that, hey, you know what? That round is over. Next time, figure out, like, now your job is to find the reason why that happened, so that maybe the next time you can do better, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually have a story with that too. My bad, Hernan. So
No,
like getting caught like in an arm triangle, and my frustration, my ego, I should say, didn't refuse to tap. Right, I was like, I don't care how long this person got me in there, I am not tapping. Like I did, like like the telephone ear, like I did everything in my power not to whatchamacallit it, which led to my downfall because I had a headache, a huge headache for the rest of the night. But what I took from it though was like, okay, how the heck did I get into this position? To And then the rest of the night I was watching like YouTube videos on how to get out of that, like how to escape, things like that. So in the event that whatchamacallit, like I was gonna get put in that position again, I knew how, to get out of there instead
Yeah.
of, doing the telephone ears and as a person's like squeezing my head off basically, so that helped. I guess with like the progression and alleviate the ego a little bit is that like the next time I get in this position, I know how to get out. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because I believe that jujitsu, it makes you a much more intelligent individual, and I'm not talking academically. I'm definitely from an emotional perspective. It puts you in tight situations, tough situations, arm triangle where you're getting tapped out, you're blacking out, and you have a choice. Tap out, which is give up, or go to sleep, right? And your ability, as Diego was talking about, your ability to control your emotions and not let them get the best of you to the point where you start showing a negative emotions to that individual or to the gym or whatever, or to yourself, and leaving completely, removing yourself from that opportunity to learn something beneficial, is a huge test of your ability to control your emotional intelligence, right? And what Diego said about leave the ego at the door, it's not possible to do, right? I mean, you're telling people suppress your feelings. I don't think we should encourage people to suppress the way they feel. I think we should encourage them to rethink, reprocess how they feel at that instance, so that they can have a positive emotional reaction, right? So that, and trust me, I've gotten tapped by lower belts, and there's a little piece of me was like, you get a little angry, right? You're like, how that happened, or man, like, why that happened. But I have that, I'm doing that surface acting on kind of like showing a cool face and like, good job, right? But inside, I'm hurting, right? But in that transaction, right, in that moment, you're forcing yourself to be aware of how you feel, right? You're forcing yourself to have a certain level of self-awareness, control, so that you don't offend that person, so that you don't show a negative reaction. And that itself, if you really put things in perspective, you're really training your ability to be more emotionally intelligent. Now, I know we're kind of getting off, like I'm nerded out on emotional intelligence because I'm actually giving a class on it. But it's interesting to hear what you guys are saying, and I'm like, yo, that really resonates with being emotionally intelligent, have a higher EQ, and so jujitsu
Yeah.
can do that for you, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, like, you're with what you said, like, if I'm able to, process, getting tapped out, like, because we're on this specific point, getting tapped out by someone else or lower rank, um, if if I have to just focus on being okay, then I'm not going to be able to solve that problem later. Like
Right.
Fernando, you know what I'm saying? Now you're going on, you're YouTubing, you know, you're researching, you're trying to get better because of that incident. Same thing happens with competition, right? You know, and even any challenge on the mat. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, you know, how, like we you know, like you said, you know, the beauty of jujitsu is the fact that, you know, we have these opportunities, you know, for that self-development, you know, for that growth, you know, but we need to be able to, you know, I think a big thing is, you know, being able to be moderate, being able to be balanced, and have good control. And everything that we're talking about, all these things that we're mentioning, we do in jujitsu every single time anyway, right? We have to be patient, we have to be in control, we have to keep moving, we have to do all these things in the actual role, like literally, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You know, and I know we're on this topic a little too much. Probably I need to move on, but every time you get defeated, first of all, we all need to realize that we're not going to win every single match and every single role that we have, whether in the gym or in competition. That's just the reality. You're not going to do that. You're not going to, as a white belt, you're not going to come in and beat a blue belt easily. You're not going to beat a black belt probably at all, right? And you have to realize and put things into perspective and use all of those moments. And honestly, I like Fernando, you learn more when you make a mistake, when you mess up and you get tapped out than when you're not. Because if you're constantly winning, you're not going to find what's next, what I need to move forward and how to progress, right? If you're constantly just being the guy, number one guy on top, right? So losing and or being defeated or getting tapped out, however you want to call it, it is the best way for you to actually learn what you're doing wrong. And there's like a quote, a cliche that they say in jiu-jitsu is, you know, what they say, like learning or tapping out is actually learning or something along those lines, right?
You don't lose,
you
you learn.
Yeah, you don't lose, you learn, right? So it's significant to your progression to understand that you are going to lose and probably lose a lot more. And honestly, you want to lose a lot more than you want to win so that you can get better, right? And it's just part of the game, right?
Yeah, it's something that I've like I said, like in the beginning, yeah, I didn't know that, didn't appreciate it, but now, you know, I'm starting to, you know, develop that appreciation to it, and then like, okay, you know, you got me, you know, and let's figure out how can I avoid getting into that position, or if I'm in that position, being comfortable enough to know that okay, there's different avenues and ways that I can get out or escape that position.
it's not easy. It's not easy to get through that. But then they tap you out, and after that, they never want to roll you again because they want to leave on that. They want to leave on that W.
They want to
That is true,
They
right?
don't want to
Let's
see
run it
you
back.
because you know
Let's
you're
run
gonna
it
come
back real
back.
quick.
Because in my head, I'm like, that's never gonna happen again. Next time I see you,
Yep, it's on. Yep.
we're going ham.
All right, let's move on to the next one. So number 3 that is the time commitment. All right, a lot of people leave jiu-jitsu because they don't have, or they're incapable of putting in that level of effort, that time commitment to what it takes to be good in jiu-jitsu. And in previous shows, I think with Professor Omar, he talked about, or maybe at the open mat, he talked about how often you should really be on the mat if you really want to move forward, right? If you want to get good. I think for him, it was like about 3 to 4 times a week. For me, I usually say 2 to 3 times a week. If you want to get, you know, somewhat better, even once a week is better than nothing. But some people are not capable of really putting in that time commitment. What do you think about that, guys?
Yeah. So I mean, like as far as I really, man, I definitely agree. I'm always on top on board with the whole, you know, 3, 4, 5 times a week. If you can make it every day, you know, obviously please go ahead and do so because it's only going to benefit you. And obviously how you manage that week, you know, whether you roll every time or whether you just go to drill sometimes, whatever, you know, obviously that's going to be the best. I've been a big, you know, man, advocate of like, you know, even if you are going to come, you know, 4 times a month, man, or like, you know, 5 times, you know, just let it be consistent, you know,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, like you want it to grow. You don't want to do 1 day a week because your work doesn't allow you to, or whatever reason. But then after that, it becomes, you know, 2 times a month, and then just 1 time a month, and then I don't see you for 5 months, and then you come back again for that. That in itself, that won't work, right? That inconsistency definitely won't work, you know. But as you know, if that time management can be there where, you can commit, a short, some small time, I'm saying, to a class. It's always, it's better to go late sometimes. Like there's times in where, I know this is not something that is like, beneficial to all schools or even for the person, because you shouldn't be late to a class. But one of the advice that I got from a professor was like, even if you come late, just come, because better late than never. I was working. There was times where I couldn't make it, and imagine if I didn't make it at 7 o'clock on the dot, and because I got out of work late, but he made it easier. And I think, like, again, just being able to commit to any time, even if it's small, but to be consistent, to make
Absolutely.
it a repetitive thing, and make it a habit. But definitely 3 or 4 times a week are definitely the ideal schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I get there's a lot of people who have crazy schedules. They work a whole bunch of hours, but you really got to try to find something that's going to make sense for you. And, you're not expected to be in the gym 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, 7 days a week. You yourself have to find what's best for you. And if it definitely you definitely need time. You need commit time to be good in jiu-jitsu, to get better in jiu-jitsu. But it's like anything, right? It's like really like anything, and you have to decide whether is it going to be an occasional thing or is it going to be something that I'm more dedicated to. But it's just like anything in life, like that you want to do, right? If you want to go fishing every weekend, you're going to have to make time. If you want to, at night, be able to relax and just you know wind down after a hard day of work, you have to make time. If you want to go to the gym just for your own personal fitness, you have to make time. So with jiu-jitsu, it's the same thing. You have to find a reasonable schedule that works for you. Most gyms are available 6-7 days a week, so they have a wide variety of times that can potentially fit for you. And if it doesn't fit, let's say the gym that's closest to you doesn't fit, then find something else. There's private lessons that you can take, right? You can always call the instructor and say, look, my schedule doesn't allow me to come during those times. Is there something else that we can do? I'm sure that an instructor will be more than willing to help you and accommodate you. And trust me, I've known people who only take private lessons because they can't make it in the evenings or they can't make a morning class. And those people have the attention of that individual, and they get good, and they get really good. So one day this guy pops in and I'm like, who's this guy? And he's like, oh, he's been training with me 2 years privately. You get, you progress. So there is no excuse as far as not making time. We make time for everything. What did Pacheco say? One thing, he's like, we're either gonna make time for
Our health.
yeah, or
We're gonna make time for our health.
Yeah,
exactly. So
but you will make time. Yeah,
you're gonna make time for something.
And I mean, like, finding something about jujitsu that you enjoy would allow you to help you, right? Would help you do that. Would help you make that commitment. The same thing with everything else, right? Why do people go to the gym, religiously? You know what I'm saying? Because they enjoy, they enjoy something about whatever it is that they're doing beyond the activity itself, right? Because the activity itself, it's you can't love the activity. Like, I don't know if anybody goes into a gym and enjoys pushing, themselves to the limit, like having to push, 5, I don't know, bench, whatever it is that people bench nowadays, right? So, like, maybe I doubt that is the love that is, they do enjoy that, but I think that's not the connection that they're making. They're making the connection based on how they feel, how they look, the people that they meet. Maybe it's their therapy, whatever the case may be. It has to be something greater, right, to allow you to commit, to whatever activity that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a quick philosophy break, and we'll come back and we'll continue with our top 5 reasons for people quitting jiu-jitsu. All right, welcome back. We are talking about reasons why people end up leaving jujitsu, quitting jujitsu, and giving some advice as to um, how to overcome those struggles, those thoughts, and even sharing some of our personal experience. So we just finished talking about frustration, ego, time commitment. Let's get into number four, injuries. So people suffer injuries and they end up having to step back. So, any stories about injuries?
Fernando, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Any?
Yeah. Well, me, you guys know, suffer from multiple knee injuries from other sports, but sometimes like it um, hinders, like my game a lot in jujitsu because like I feel like I'm at I guess a competitive disadvantage, especially if I'm in somebody's guard. Like I cannot, physically I cannot sit on the balls of my heels. So like obviously my posture is already broken and already compromised. So just finding ways around that. But yeah, but like as far as like the injuries are concerned, yeah, I mean that's a part of the game. I mean nobody's like completely 100%. So those things happen, and you just gotta listen to your body, give yourself that time, the proper time to rest and to heal up. But what I would say though, as far as that is to because we sometimes like use like the injuries as an excuse of why not to come. So like if you have like an injury, you just stay away from the mats, and then all of a sudden that becomes your habit. Like oh well, like I haven't gone this, but maybe I'll go next week. And then that next week's turns to like 3 months, a year, and then all of a sudden so if injuries happen, but try to avoid it. And even if you don't like actively participate, but just show up to class, take notes, just sit on the sidelines, but just continue to be in that environment, so that, eventually, when you come back, you still be, of mind, sharp mind and a body to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man, those are tough, man. I mean, the out of the list of people, people quitting because of certain things, like injuries is a tough one, man, because like you it may come out of nowhere, right? All of a sudden, you're 100%, and then one move, and all of it, you're out, and you're out for, and a time that you don't know, right? Because again, you're rolling, you're training, you get injured. Now that injury, you have to find out how bad it is and how long it's going to take you out, and so the injury itself is something that's causing you to, like, not be on the mat physically, but now you have your mental struggle, right? You
Yeah.
have your emotional struggle,
Mm.
because you're really you're we're and this obviously goes full circle, but like, you're telling someone, you have to rest, right? Because you're injured, you have to rest, like there's no way around it. So
Mhm.
now having to come back and having to motivate yourself again and again, and I think, like, all these things, again, having a good team, having good instruction, all that stuff, like, does help. But injuries are tough, man. Injuries are tough because it's out of nowhere, and it can hurt really bad. Both, I mean, not the physical, but it can hurt really bad as to, like, how you take it. I don't understand how, like, I haven't been really, we've had the school for such a long time. We've been instructing and all that. And I commend those people who do get injured and still come to class for drilling, because I do agree, even if you can't make it to class for a full, session, at least come for, to take notes, at least come to listen to the class, at least come to be around, maybe not for the lesson, but for yourself, just to keep you a
Social.
little bit motivated.
Yeah. Now, I definitely agree. Injuries are difficult, and and depending on the severity, they might keep you off the mat, and maybe depending on your level of commitment, it might be like, well, I'm a hobbyist. I'm just doing this for the fun. I don't really need jujitsu in my life, and you step back because of a particular injury, and that's okay if you decide to do that, right? If that's what you want, you pursue other things that make you happy in life, and no point and no time are we of the opinion that you must do jujitsu, right? If you want to do jujitsu, absolutely love it, no doubt. But if there's reasons, if there's something else in your life that makes you as happy, absolutely. But if you are a little bit more than the hobbyist, you're a little bit more enthusiastic about it, and you do suffer an injury, don't let that be the reason why you walk away. There's so many resources now that can keep you in the jiu-jitsu community, right? If you're not physically capable of doing it, like Diego and Fernando said, you can come to the mat, be in that social environment, still soak up some knowledge. There's videos you can watch, there's books that you can read. There's always an opportunity to continue to learn, so
there's no art that you can train. I mean, from my understanding, I'm speaking, just again, maybe just biased to jiu-jitsu, but I don't think there's any art that you can train with an injury. Like, for example, I'm a boxer, I'm boxing, I break my hand. I don't think it's recommended to go in and fight with one hand. I don't think, trainers would allow that, but again, I'm not sure, I hurt my leg, I'm going to go and do kickboxing. I don't think there's that connection. But in jiu-jitsu, it's not the most recommended, right? But in jiu-jitsu, if you come, let's say you hurt your shoulder, your arm, your elbow on one side, if you were to secure it to your body, you can still move with other limbs, right? You can still move with other body parts that you can control and be okay with. And that's a nice way to understand that. And when we do have an injury and we do have a limitation, we can still defend ourselves, right? Because again, the whole jiu-jitsu is it's a mental growth, it's a mental development also. So if we feel comfortable with we're out on the street, God forbid somebody hurts our shoulder or somebody hurts a part of our body, then we know how to defend ourselves because we've been in that situation.
Yeah, I mean that's how to adapt to that, right? And again, jiu-jitsu, the most important thing is to learn for self-defense, right? And you're right, you're guaranteed in the street. You're not guaranteed to be 100%, right? You could be, you might have had an injury from soccer and all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation. And now what do? I've seen people rolling with like braces on their knees because they just had ACL tear, but they're working off their back, maybe just, trying to break grips or, defending the collar from chokes or whatever. And that's their training, right? And that's what they're capable of doing. And, and talking about handicaps is making me think of that movie, Red Belt, where they physically put themselves in a handicap position. And we'll train that too. We'll put our hand in the belt to take one limb out of the equation and see now how do you do with that. So there's always workarounds. There's always an opportunity to work around it. But don't let an injury, really limit you. And honestly, even if it's a serious injury like an ACL tear or something that's going to really keep you off the mats, there's always opportunities for you to continue learning and use that opportunity to rehab yourself and just keep within the environment.
But just as a disclaimer, if you are injured, make sure that you take care of it. Tell people, make sure you take care of it, the way that it should be. It's not like we're saying, you have an injury, go train and do, continue. Obviously you have to make sure that your health is first, that you're okay to train. Obviously, but the whole idea is to not allow the injury or any of these, matters like, hurt your training, you're continuing to train.
And also too, I think too, like if you communicate with your partner that you're drilling or rolling with, like, hey, listen, I've had like, multiple knee surgeries, can you just take it easy? Like, don't go for like leg locks and things like that, or
let me ask you, are you the type of person to be like, yo, don't go for leg locks, but then you go and attack every leg lock?
I plead the fifth.
You can't.
Yeah. So there's a question that came in from Saleh. He says, this topic's hitting hard. LOL, just hurt my knee. What would you recommend for workouts to do off the mats if you sustained a lower body injury?
I mean, first of all, like you make sure that the knee is like, make sure that you're taking care of your injury. You're resting it. We have a guy here that always advises us to, again, make sure that you address it, you attend to it. So that way your recovery doesn't last longer, right? Because you don't want it to be where this setback. It's now feeling like, oh my goodness, I can't do jiu-jitsu. What do I do? Let me just go back. And now now your recovery process is, that much longer, but as far as, for myself, I've always, every time I've hurt, my knees, I've always tried to do things that, like, playing off your back or, not, or just leaving my legs out of the picture when I'm trying to roll, like, sitting down or maybe just doing like some self-defense, or whatnot. Workouts outside,
quads. Yeah.
I mean, like he's if he's hurting his knee,
Yeah.
then yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I don't. As far as additional exercises, I would just continue going to class for myself.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
me personally.
I'd recommend that one, if it's really significant, that you go see a doctor. I mean, obviously, we're not medical
Yeah.
experts here, but go see a doctor, and depending on what advice he gives you, follow through with it. Maybe even check out a physical therapist to give you some exercises to straighten that knee. But if you want to just keep fluid in jiu-jitsu, I mean, there's solo drills that you can do at home, bridges. You could just keep up with some core exercises. Anything that targets the knee particularly, I'd maybe stay away from, obviously, because you don't want to aggravate the knee, but you want to strengthen maybe the muscles around it, like Fernando said, maybe some basic squats and stuff like that, maybe leg lifts with resistance bands, maybe with a light weight. And I say this from experience because I've had numerous PT sessions for knee injuries. But I would definitely first foremost seek medical advice. But as far as jiu-jitsu, even if you have an injured knee, come to class, and we'll definitely work around that, and maybe do techniques that'll help you continue moving forward, but they may not necessarily focus on having to put a lot of pressure on your knee.
There's a lot of there's a gymnastica. There's a lot of movements that you can do that can keep the weight off the knee or off of any part of your body. So those are always great. Fluid movements, motion drills, stretching, basic, coordination drills and all that stuff. So, at the end of the day, it can connect to jiu-jitsu, but obviously, there's going to be a big portion because you're not going to class, right? That's missing, but as long as you can keep active.
Yeah, and again, jiu-jitsu is really mental. So if you physically can't come. I mean, if you physically can't do anything, come and at least come and watch, take notes,
ask questions,
record it, and you can always see it over and over again. And once you feel 100% healthy, then you start doing it, right? Mm-hmm. So that at least you don't miss out. Mm-hmm. All right, number 5. Okay, this is a common term that we've heard: the blue and through. All right, people getting their blue belt and all of a sudden say, "I'm good" and "I'm out." And it's funny because and I can relate to this because when I started jiu-jitsu, I initially told my wife that I just want to get to blue belt. After blue belt, then I'm good. I should know enough to be able to defend myself, and that's it. And after that, I'll quit jiu-jitsu. So I could definitely understand why people might do this, and they might think that after reaching blue belt, enough of jiu-jitsu to be able to defend yourself, and that's good enough. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I feel it's crazy. They say that blue belt is probably the easiest to obtain, but the hardest to progress from, because I mean it's the level of technical skill to get to purple belt. It's just and some people, I heard some people say they could take as long as 6 years to graduate from that. So I could see from that perspective, I guess the time and not appreciating the belt itself and the significance of the belt, people getting frustrated and then ultimately quitting. Also too, there's some people that like you said, Hernandez, oh, I got my blue belt, I'm good, I don't need this anymore, and they just move on. So it's just, it depends on what you want to take out of it. If that's your ultimate goal, no hard feelings or anything like that, but if you want to progress further, it's just overcoming that mental block and developing that game so that you can progress.
So if I look at it from if your goal is to be a blue belt with certain things checked off, then I would be okay, then that's okay, right? Because you're setting a goal for yourself, you're setting a limitation for yourself, a limit for yourself, and you're reaching that goal. And blue belt is a very decent belt, right, in jiu-jitsu, right? It's really a high belt in jiu-jitsu, right, in terms of and comparing to other arts, not to downplay them, but just the level of training is a little bit different, but so the difference comes in where you do what you need to do, right? In your year, and then you feel like you've accomplished already the essence of jujitsu, the most of jujitsu you've gotten, and now you feel like good enough to be like, oh, I got this. That's it. I'm good in jujitsu. That's not the case, right? So again, I think the mentality has to be, depending on what you want, right? I can't have a bachelor's in a certain education and then feel like I'm the best
Perform
in
surgery.
that sense. Exactly, right? I can't feel like I'm the best in that area, right? I should go for my master's and my PhD or more education so I can keep going. So it just depends on that person,
Right.
and that blue. If that mentality is there where, oh, I got a blue belt, man, a blue belt is a great belt, so that's it. That's okay, like you, Fernando, like you said. But okay, like it's gonna get to a point where it's no longer the case, right? Like right now, I have a bachelor's degree, and that's it. It's no longer the same weight as it was in the past, right? So it's just a matter of how you want to progress, where you want to go. What does the blue mean to you? Do you understand what it really means? And again, like your own goals and perception on it.
Yeah. And as an instructor, as a coach, as a professor, man, I don't think I want anybody just to stop at blue. You want
Yeah.
everybody to go to black, right? Because there's so
Yeah.
much more. Even myself, like we've reached the black belt, but we know there's so much more that we're gonna learn, that we can learn. As long as we keep ourselves, with an open mind, right, and to information, right? Because everybody, people are coming out with new things at all times, right? But and I agree with you, Diego. Like if that is your ultimate goal, more power to you. Achieve it, own it. But definitely, like if you feel like that's it, that's the ultimate, that's the epitome of jujitsu, then I think you got to keep on going and go for your purple, brown, and black.
Look, I opened up. I mean, my brother knows. Like, I had the school as a blue belt, right? Would I do that again? I don't. I wasn't thinking like, oh, I'm good and that's it. Let me open. It was for a specific reason. We opened up the school for the community because there wasn't any in that area, and for a whole different reason. But it wasn't. It wasn't out of the knowledge part of it. It was just out of the need. So at the end of the day, like, now as a black belt, man, I would have I would never advise or obviously tell anyone to stop at blue. We would never do that. But there's more to the technique. I feel like it's not the technique that I appreciate, from white to black, is the growth and the journey and the mental development and the ups and downs that I had to go through and all that helps you become just a better, or not better individual, right? It helps you become like you, right? It molds you, type of
Right.
thing, right? So the technique, learning how to fight is a bonus, is something that is a nice part of it, but everything else that you get from it, I think, holds so much more weight. So if you stop at blue, yeah, you're gonna have a certain, like, a nice foundation, you're gonna have certain things that you can appreciate, but there's so much more from that fresh blue, going forward, right? Because your understanding becomes different. Now you can shit, if when a white belt joins, they love jujitsu, right? They're really eager. They enjoy it. And what do? They're the first people to coach, right? The white belts are the first people to coach, and it's amazing. And it's like, now, because even now I'm like, man, now as a black belt, I'm even less like, man, should I even answer it? Because now I understand the responsibility, right? Now I understand that, what, I want to make sure that what comes out of my mouth is correct, right? I just don't want to just say anything. So at the end of the day, like, the first people are what is it? I lost my train of thought, but like,
Those are the coaches.
the white belts are they're the first one to coach. But I guess is like, after the blue, you get more mental development, right? Or after a certain time, you get more personal development, right? You develop on yourself a little bit more. The technique is great, and you learn details of it, but I think you grow in so many different other ways that just add more value to it.
Yeah, and the reality is too, like if when you get to, and usually I'll tell students, from white to blue, you're really just focusing on how to defend yourself, right?
Mhm.
A lot of basic self defense, stuff that maybe is effective in the streets, but most of it is you're just basically trying to avoid getting submitted, from day one to blue belt. Really, at blue belt is when you develop some technique, right? When you start developing a game, and then at purple belt, you're discovering, refining, and it keeps on going that way all the way to black. But blue belt stage is really where you're learning how to use jujitsu effectively, right? White belt, you're really just learning how not to get tapped out and survive. So if that's where you want to be, great, no, by all means. But with the blue belt stage going into purple and moving forward, you're going to develop a lot more of the technical aspect and the mental aspect, how to deal with things, how to deal with it, with your emotions and so on and so forth. But again, if blue belt is your thing, by all means, no problem. All right, we got.
Yeah, so I mean, just like again, you imagine if you're. This is what I was mentioning, saying like if you as a white belt are so enthused and so excited to be able to share, imagine how much more you can share when you do have when you can put that together, right? When you as a blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, black belt. Now, when you do share it, it's a little bit of a different, you have a little bit more history, right? Again, you're coming in as a white belt with enthusiasm and love of jiu-jitsu, but you still haven't really gone through, what I'm saying, the ups and downs of what it gives you. But now as a blue belt, you've gone through a little bit more. The sharing becomes even that much more valuable,
You got a couple. You got a little bit more miles on your belt, right?
Exactly.
Now you're coupling that enthusiasm with the experience. So, all right, we're at the top of the hour, and I know we got to get going. Diego got open mat, but there's a few more that we wanted to mention, and maybe we'll get to it in another segment. But toxic gym, can't connect with other people. Maybe the gym that you're going to doesn't have a curriculum, and the cost, right? The cost. So let's just mention those, and maybe we'll do part 2 of this, for another show. We got to go train. I know Diego got to go train. So last few words, Diego, what you got before you got to go?
I mean, yeah, man, if you're looking into jiu-jitsu, definitely, give it a shot. Don't let, things that other people have gone through, let it stop you. And if you're in jiu-jitsu and something does happen, the ups and downs, talk to someone, give yourself a break, maybe, take some time on your own to kind of like, sort things out. Just know that jiu-jitsu in itself is it's very beneficial. So as long as we can find something that, that can keep us in it, just keep going. Again, if you're thinking about quitting for whatever reason, give a call to your training partner, to your professor, to whatever the case may be, just to keep going, and keep training.
Awesome, Fernando.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of what Diego was saying, yeah, like if you're in it, just keep going, keep training, because it's weird, like how, like, as like I'm starting to get like a little bit more, I guess, involved and more, rediscovering that love for jiu-jitsu. Like things are starting to make sense now. Like I'm starting to, like, it's starting to click, and I'm like, oh, this is why this makes sense. Whereas before, like, I didn't appreciate it or didn't understand it. So I definitely, recommend, just keep going, keep grinding. It's a grind. It's not easy. If it was easy, there will be, a 50 million black belts, or, blue belts, even white belts. Like it's not easy. It's a grind. And if you're willing to persevere and have that mental fortitude, it's rewarding.
And even like you said, even when that moment clicks, now that becomes like a gem for you, right? Now that no one can take that away from you now, But if you would have quit right before you hit that mark, then you would have never
known.
But never known, exactly. Right?
And now that it clicked, I'm like, all right, now I want to learn more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be that up and down.
Yep.
Absolutely. Great advice, man. And I hope, you guys who are watching this can benefit from it. Find something that's going to make it worthwhile, whatever it is. You're going to end up figuring that out on your own, but communicating your feelings with your professor, or maybe with a training partner to help you get over that hurdle. Everybody's faced it. Everybody on this right now, all three of us have faced it. Sometimes we still face it. Even world champions. I've heard stories from world champions that say, man, I actually quit and then came back, and they're world champions, right? It just happens. It's part of life. But it definitely is a test of your ability to just figure out what's more important for you, and that's it. But we're always going to advocate for jiu-jitsu. Love it, embrace it, ups and downs, no matter what it is. Get through it and just get on the mat and train and find happiness in it.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right, guys. With that, we'll wrap up. Until next week. Para siempre.
Thank you. Para
All right,
siempre.
guys. Have a good weekend.
You too. Have a good one.
Para siempre.
Happy 4th.